since I'm reviewing Superman the Movie Part 4, Quest for Peace, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I enjoy this movie. It's goofy B-movie fun. Starring Christopher Reeve's Superman in his final outing, playing his Superman, and this time he goes up against a villain called Nuclear Man. Nuclear Man's a hybrid of a Kryptonian and Lex Luthor's DNA, which Zack Snyder uses a blueprint to inspire himself to create Doomsday in the plot of Batman v Superman. Then James Gunn will steal that from Zack Snyder in his new Superman movie to create Ultraman. Was his DNA, was Superman's DNA, and then it'll be this, except it'll be 100% Kryptonian. It's he's this clone Superman. And wait, that's a different plot. I just realized actually Snyder is only borrowed from Superman 4. Is the only one that borrowed from Superman 4. Gunn didn't borrow from Superman 4. It just is as stupid as a confusing plot twist as Superman 4. So because Superman 4 and Nuclear Man's created by Luthor's DNA and Superman's DNA. So he's the baby of Superman and Luthor DNA. Just like Doomsday in the plot of Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice 2016. And that was too edgy for Superman fans. But it worked in and it paid much tribute to the past for Superman fans as the norm. Like Superman 4. Quest for Peace. It paid tribute to Superman 4, Quest for Peace, in the ways we never thought possible. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Another reason why it's one of the best Superman/Batman movies of all time. Snyder realized the genius behind this movie, Superman 4, Quest for Peace. I was going to give this an 8 out of 10. But the more I'm thinking about it, I want to give it like a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Because it's groundbreaking and revolutionizing Superman, the brand. It's groundbreaking for the Superman brand. And revolutionizing for the Snyderverse. And left such a great impact on culture, comic book fandom. That's why I think Superman 4 should get a 9 out of 10. Sure, I agree, it needs a budget. That's why it gets a 9 out of 10. Still needs a budget. But I want to give it a 9 out of 10. Because it was that good. So that's just one problem, my nitpick I had. It just doesn't have a good budget like the first 3 did. Now I'm going to review Superman 3. I'm going to give that also a 9 out of 10. Because the one thing I would change about it is not the comedic tone, self-aware tone it goes for. No, I would just change it so Superman's the main protagonist instead of Richard fucking Pryor. That's why I give it a 9 out of 10. I would give it a 9 out of 10. I give the first two Superman movies, Superman 1 and 2, a 10 out of 10. Because I enjoyed everything about them. The theatrical cut of Superman 2 and the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 is both a 10 out of 10 for me. And even the special edition of Superman 2, of Superman the movie, the special cut edition that shows more action, still gets a 10 out of 10 because it's a little longer. And what I liked about Christopher Reeve, so it feels like a homage to all of the great Supermans that played before Christopher Reeve in black and white. And that even the one that was done in black and white and got transitioned to color. What's his name? George Reeve. He reminds me the most of George Reeve's Superman. Christopher Reeve does. Superman reminds me the most of George Reeve's Superman. This is how he plays him, and completely just like plays him as this goody two-shoe Superman. As all powerful and all good. And generally nice. So, and caring. And all that is stuff of why I think Superman's a cool hero. That's why I think Superman played by Christopher Reeve is so similar to George Reeves. Superman. Sure, he does put on a more of a dorky persona with Clark Kent, and than Reeve did. Played him more of a standard, relatable, mild-mannered reporter, and less of a dork compared to what Clark Kent does was played by Christopher Reeve. How he plays Clark Kent. I give these two Superman movies by Christopher Reeve a 10 out of 10. The same reason why I would give Superman 1950s debut of George Reeves' Superman, the movie called Superman and the Mole Man, a 10 out of 10. Because they feel like they're like night and day, like they feel like they're so similar performings as Superman, and does a good job embodying the character of Superman from the comics, Lord. So I enjoy these movies, these 5 Superman movies that I reviewed, from the oldest to the newest. Superman 4: Quest for Peace, and George Reeves' Superman movie I reviewed, called Superman and the Mole Man. I give it a 10 out of 10. That's why I give the Superman franchise by Christopher Reeve a 10 out of 10. Now I'm going, hang on. Talk about the Superman movie called Superman Returns, and why I'll also give this Superman movie a 10 out of 10. This is one of my favorite Superman movies of all time, and comic movies of all time, period. This gets a 10 out of 10 because I did enjoy this, even though I missed the more bright standard colors for Superman, it got used to and ended up growing on the new Superman Returns look for Superman Returns costume, how the colors are more muted for the standard blue and red. For the first time for the iconic superhero character, you know, at least on the big screen for Superman Returns. For, you know, muting colors does make it look more, muting the colors doesn't really, I think, make it look grounded. It just makes me harder to give it my suspension of disbelief. Because you're doing the character, some adaptation of the character for your vision, and I just think more people know of what the character looks like standard from the comics than what the character acts like from the comics. So I just think for the general public, it's more important if you get what the costume looks like from the comics and at least the colors right. And because I don't think a whole lot enough people read comic books. It's just in general public. So more people probably know what the costume looks like with the main characters and then any of the stories. Reading them, you know? Then again, we do live in a country where, like, not many people are reading as well. I hear. I just mentioned that because I just thought it was kind of strange how the reason why Superman Returns muted the colors on the costume because they thought it was a good idea to make it more believable in real world, like, but it just looks as silly to me, the costume. Muting the colors looks as silly and as dumb as the costume itself with the standard colors that we're used to for Superman. I'll give Snyder this. He had the right idea of not making a dark Superman costume and muting the colors. Well, making the costume and filming the costume for the movies of his. Probably why I like his costume more because it's more vibrant than Superman Returns color. Not as vibrant as Christopher Reeve's color or the new Superman color. From the new Superman movie, the new costume color scheme. With the bright red and blue in trunks, it's a new one. To be honest with you, I think of all the Superman costumes I ended up growing on, attached to, I think it's actually Zack Snyder's Superman costume that's actually my favorite in live action because I think that one grew on me the most because it seemed to try hardest and succeed the most at reinventing, reimagining the costume for a new generation while not ditching the traditional color schemes of the costume that we're known for seeing on Superman. Like it tried not to go too far away from it, the color scheme compared to Superman Returns, 2006. And I think that was more of the downfall. One of the weaker elements of Superman Returns was the costume, Superman's costume. Because the colors just weren't there. They were too dark and too muted for that version of Superman that they want to tell, you know? And you know, people say that Superman as well. But Superman is kind of very representative Christopher Reeve Superman. Well, I think they meant that as a negative because, you know, the colors of his costumes are fucking muted and dark and gritty looking, depressing. To me, that's just not a Superman. That's not what you do for Superman, because he's supposed to represent hope and be a more hopeful, optimistic character. So it makes sense to keep those more of the bolder, bright colors from the comics as much as possible, while reinventing the wheel for live action. If you think you can do it, I think Snyder did it with the costume, and that's why I think he's my favorite Superman costume of all time by Snyder's. Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I like the tweaks it made in between those two movies of the costume. I realized I gave Superman Returns a 10 out of 10. The one was Brendan Ralph. And I started talking about Man of Steel costume. I'm going to talk about Man of Steel in this video also. Okay, so Superman Returns gets a 10 out of 10. I really like the portrayal of Lex Luthor. We got a bold, actually intimidating, subtle portrayal of Lex Luthor, but every bit of evil as you imagine him, and smart. And I like the part where Superman lifts the island of Kryptonite, and even though he's stabbed and bleeding out a bit and hurt, and he's just like somehow like lifts the Kryptonite rock piece of island and revels it into space, and it's just this cool part. I like that part in Superman Returns. And I loved all the action. I loved, even though the suit was not my favorite Superman suit, it is a Superman suit I ended up coming to enjoy. And grew attached to him in his own ways. It does feel iconic once you see Brendan Ralph in the suit and play Superman. And I love how Superman makes entrance and he comes back when Lois' life is in danger again. I like that part when he chases after the plane and the falling, and he's breaking the sound barrier. And we see Superman break the sound barrier for the first time on screen. We never got to see that in a Superman movie before Superman Returns. We did see him break the sound barrier. And I like how Zack Snyder, so we got to see him break the sound barrier in the Snyderverse. And I like how James Gunn in the James Gunn-verse pays homages to Superman Returns breaking the sound barrier and going really, really fast while flying. It just always looks cool. Seeing him go like really fast while flying. I didn't like Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor ever. He just wasn't intimidating or subtle. He was too campy, too silly, and he just wore that stupid wig all the time. He was just playing Gene Hackman. I'm sorry, I felt like he was playing Gene Hackman, not Lex Luthor. Zod, on the other hand, in his army, was in the reverse of Superman 2, was a better movie because of Zod and his army, and Superman met so more of it, met his match. That's why Superman 2 is my favorite Christopher Reeves movie, by Christopher Reeves era. The theatrical cut and the Richard Donner cut. And I like, um, so yeah, that's my review on Superman Returns. I give it a 10 out of 10. Now I'm going to be reviewing Man of Steel. And why I'm going, this is also a 10 out of 10. It's my favorite Superman movie, standalone movie of all time in live action on the big screen. Ever of all time. And I enjoy the story of Batman of Man of Steel. And I like how he ties into Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and builds into it with some world building. And I going to talk about the whole Snyderverse trilogy and why it gets a 10 out of 10 for me. All three of them. From the first Man of Steel to the Ultimate cut of Batman v Superman and the theatrical cut of Batman v Superman and the Snyder cut of 4 hours run of Snyder's Justice League got 10 out of 10. All of them get a 10 out of 10 from me. Because this trilogy is some of the best storytelling that I ever seen as a fan of Superman. This is like great storytelling for Superman, and I love how Superman kind of like I like how Superman like I like how if who has seen the movie Bruce Willis Unbreakable movie? You know the plot of Unbreakable? How Bruce was always depressed, but he still works hard and gets a job, well, we see Superman get a job, and we see Superman depressed majority of the movie because he's not doing what he's meant to be doing, being Superman. Not until he finds like the ship, the Superman ship. Was in the plot of Man of Steel, and then he gets the message from his father and explains his heritage and explains why he's and what he can give the people hope, and explains that that's what the symbol means, and we see him suit up and step out of the ship in the Superman costume, and he looks so cool. And we see him try to fly for the first time, and he falls after landing poorly. So his first flight was not a success, but his success flight takeoff was like more of a success than the first takeoff. I like how this movie really focused on Superman and Superman and is I like Superman's origin and how it plays out in this movie, and how he tells the origin story and how it ties into Zod's invasion and coming to Earth and making Earth the new Krypton. And Superman is Superman, and the people of Earth are going to help him take down Zod, and I thought that was pretty cool, seeing that play it out. And I thought it was kind of, I thought it was like, I like the part when, it was like Superman did snap Zod, but it was only to save, save the lives. That Zod was said he wasn't going to stop killing people, so he's just said you can mourn from them if you love humans so much. So he planned on killing everyone, even on the planet. So, and in the plot of Man of Steel, this isn't technically never killed before. So his first reaction to taking out life is like him crying or screaming, or crying and screaming, and yeah. And the plot of Man of Steel, this is like Superman's first day of being Superman. And he gets his ass kicked a lot in this movie by Zod and his army. And a lot of collateral damage happens because he doesn't know ever been in a fight with an actual Kryptonian. That's his match. The Superman's never been in a fight before, so that someone has that's challenged him in the plot of Man of Steel. So I like that story. This story, I thought it was cool. I give this a 10 out of 10, Man of Steel. And I give Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the actual cut and Ultimate Edition, a 10 out of 10. Both cuts. I like how this takes place a few months after the events of, like 6 months after, I forget how many months it takes after the place of Man of Steel, but it says in the opening. So Superman is all depressed and kind of bummed out because he's a little unsure of himself because he's kind of bummed out by the media, and also because he's not really sure if he's like doing this hero work well. Basically, it's kind of explain the movie, and and Batman is hunting Superman down because he's being a paranoid jackass, an old senile bastard. And he's just grieving due to the loss of his Robin. And taking out on Superman and wanting to Superman to just die. So that's why he gets the kryptonite spear, invents the kryptonite spear, and the plot of Superman tries to kill Superman. Yeah, it's kind of bothering me that they made Batman the main villain of the movie more than Lex and Doomsday, because you try to kill the hero of the movie that did nothing wrong, and all he did is just try to save people and do good in the both movies. And it's kind of just bums me out as a Batman fan that they made Batman kind of like this bad guy, and they made him turn good and work with Superman. I kind of wish like there was a better way around that. I just wish like Batman. I just wish I didn't have to see Batman play the villain trying to kill Superman, because you know, Superman's like a hero, and Batman's usually a hero and doing good and stuff. So it kind of bothers me. He's just trying to kill another hero that didn't do any, that didn't really do anything. And Batman's just being paranoid, explaining the movie. And Alfred is kind of is trying to talk some sense into Bruce, but he's being arrogant in the plot of Batman v Superman, so he's going to go on a hunt to kill Superman. Then he has a change of heart when he hears his Martha name come up, which is Superman's mother's name, in the plot of Superman, of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And Batman starts freaking out because he thinks, for some reason, because Batman's crazy, and this Batman's definitely a disturbed man. So it makes sense for this Batman to start freaking out and assume the worst, that I guess. It makes sense in the context of a lot of the movie, I thought. And so Superman, I guess, help from Batman, and Batman offers him his help to save his mother while he goes after for Lex. And Batman saves Superman's mom, and which leads to this like awesome execution of this like one of the greatest Batman fights of all time. In this warehouse fight, seeing Batman take on a bunch of goons and take on a bunch of goons at once and just give them hell. Oh, it's a massacre. Brutal fight it was. This is Frank Miller's Batman. Traditionally, some Batmans, depending on what Batman era you read, yeah, Batman's not known for killing, but this Batman is the Frank Miller Batman from the Dark Knight Returns base, is what, well, Zack Snyder based his vision of Batman around. Frank Miller's Batman. And that Batman is known for shooting someone point blank in the head of his opening of the Batman story called Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, where Batman's like a 60-year-old veteran out of retirement Batman, and has been Batman for 12 fucking years. Or something like that, you know? So 12 or something like years, like a few years, decades. So yeah, and Batman is like, that Batman shoots someone in the head with a gun, a goon to save a kid, but he's still murdered, and it doesn't ever like get mentioned ever. So that Batman just kills someone just for shock value because it's never brought up in the story ever again. Or it has an impact on the story other than just for shock value. Frank Miller's Batman. So this Batman's I'm okay with killing for shock value a little bit. Ben Affleck's Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman is my favorite on-screen Batman and has my favorite Batman costume of all time. I like Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, both cuts, more than Man of Steel, I think, because of Batman and Superman teaming up at the end and taking on Doomsday with Wonder Woman. Was an awesome fight. Great fan service it was. I enjoyed it. You know, I like how Jim just feel like fan service actually contribute to the story of the movie. All of this stuff. I would like how he builds up and cameos of each Justice League member, and how we see that payoff in the Snyder cut of his Justice League 4-hour run cut. We get to see each Justice League member get fleshed out, and get each Justice member get a good amount of dialogue to flesh out their characters. Which is in the 4-hour run time of the Snyder cut. Even Superman, that gets resurrected from the dead in the plot of the Snyder cut. I like how the Superman, when he comes, I like how the Superman doesn't remember exactly who he is at all, but he remembers Lois and then takes off his Lois, and then he starts to remember who he is when he remembers that his mother loved it growing up out on the farm, and he remembers so did he. I like that line when he started to remember so that he like growing up, on the farm besides his mother. I thought that was a sweet moment. And I thought that was a cute moment when when his Superman's mother came to see Superman after he came back from the dead. And I liked how Superman said goodbye to Lois and his mother and picked the new Superman suit, the black suit, was in the Snyder Cut. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason why he used the black suit. I mean, I know there's a reason why he used the black suit, because, the black suit was like was one of those, it's like to pay homage to the Death of Superman run, where he comes back from the dead and he wears a black suit as a solo suit. I mean, it's not really explained in the Snyder Cut, but it's kind of explained by Snyder himself in an interview why he did this suit black and the shot black for Superman. So I'm assuming he was going to explain it sometime in the future if he ever got his way on his vision on his if he ever got to do more, he would have explained it, but the Weissman's wearing a black suit and not standard red and blue. And plus, sometime of sequel of Justice League that the fact that it didn't happen. So, well, what can you do? It's gonna be, and also like Macho Manhunter's in this movie. He's cool. I guess good small role in the movie, and tease for us this coming to join the Justice League. At the end of the movie, I like this movie a lot. Zack Snyder's Justice League. I give this a 10 out of 10. I enjoy this more than the Whedon cut of Justice League. I mean, the Whedon cut I give a 8 out of 10. Because it reminded me that show called Super Friends, cartoon show. It felt like a live adaptation of Super Friends show. The Super Friends show back in the day. What Whedon's take on Justice League felt like. Snyder's take on Justice League felt more like 2001's Justice League series. That was a cartoon series from 2001 to 2, and ended it with Justice League Unlimited. Is what Snyder's vision of Justice League feels more like, compared to Super Friends Justice League. I mean, I like Snyder's Justice League more than Whedon's Justice League because it feels more like inspired by a better show. Cartoon show, but still a better show nonetheless compared to Super Friends. This Justice League show is like, one's obviously better than the other one, and that's Justice League compared to Super Friends, and that's why the Snyder Cut's better than the Whedon cut of 2017's Justice League. Why it gets an 8 out of 10, and the Snyder Cut gets a 10 out of 10. Zack Snyder's Justice League, I give it 10 out of 10. That's all. Subscribe to my video, like this video. Goodbye. Subscribe, like this video. Bye.